Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles. In today's story, we have a wife of 3 years cheats on her husband with her buddy, and how the husband tricks her out of spousal support, and how the wife eventually ends up losing him. Dear listeners, we are racing to reach our first 1,000 subscribers and need your support to reach there. One click on that subscribe button will be very helpful. I'm a 30-year-old male, and my wife is 25. We've been married for 3 years and together for nearly 6 in total. We don't have any children and no significant assets. In fact, we have more debt than cash in our checking account. We rent a house, and I'm the primary breadwinner, bringing home roughly $4,000 a month, while she nets around $1,500. I work tirelessly to provide her with the life she's accustomed to, but recently, we've faced a challenging situation. My work family is pretty tight-knit, and a co-worker I've known for nearly 3 years invited me to join a recreational soccer league, which I've been part of for 2 years now. My wife used to attend every soccer game, which I thought was a show of support for me. However, deep down, I wondered if she was just there for the alcohol, which often accompanied these games. Most game nights, I'd go easy on the alcohol, but she, as a spectator, would often let loose. We'd ride home together after the games. Sometimes, a few of us from the team, both guys and girls, would get together at different places to hang out into the night. On a couple of occasions, we'd all return to my place or go to a bar or a pizza joint. A few weeks ago, a group of them planned to meet at one of the guys' houses in a city a distance away from me. I regretfully told them after the game that I couldn't make it because I had to work early the next morning. On our way home, she texted one of the guys, someone I considered a buddy, asking for a ride to the party. She asked me if it was okay while I was driving, and I said no, citing my early work commitment and my desire to spend the night with her. She responded with an angry, alcohol-induced silent treatment. When we got home, I pulled into the driveway, and a car pulled up in front of the house. It was my buddy. She had taken the executive decision to go to the party despite my objections, and I was furious. I went to my buddy's car and told him I wasn't okay with this and that he should leave. But then, to my shock, my wife got out of my car and into his. They drove away, and I was seething. In my anger, I plugged in an old iPad I had bought for her years ago. I knew it was connected to her messaging and social media accounts. I discovered exactly where she was and tried to stay awake until I eventually fell asleep around 3 a.m., but she still wasn't home. The next morning, she was in our bed, and I didn't know when she had come home. I got up, got ready for work, and left without waking her or kissing her goodbye. This was the first and only time that had ever happened. I wanted my wife to know just how angry I was. Before leaving for work, I impulsively grabbed the iPad, the one I had bought for her years ago, and tossed it into my briefcase. At work, I attended a meeting and made a few phone calls, but then I pulled out the iPad and saw it light up with a notification from a messaging app. It was from the buddy she had gone to the party with. I opened the app and couldn't believe what I was reading. The conversation was supposed to be self-destructing, but this app version must have been outdated because I was witnessing it in real time. The messages were horrific. They were recanting the events of the night before, and it was clear that my wife and this guy had been intimate. I read references to them making love and other guys who had fun last night. I felt like I was about to lose it, and then it got even worse. I watched as my wife instructed this guy to send her a video of himself shaking his ding-dong, and he obliged. I was in utter shock. I ran out of my office and into the bathroom, where I vomited profusely. I was shaking from what I had just witnessed. I couldn't concentrate, and after taking several hours to calm down, I realized I couldn't stay at work any longer. I was legitimately afraid I might hurt someone or myself. I drove home and found her still sleeping in our bed. I put my stuff down and asked her to come downstairs. We sat across from each other, and I asked her to tell me everything that happened the previous night. She recounted the events but conveniently omitted any mention of any sexual situations. She claimed they were just drinking, playing pool, and talking. Then, I decided to drop the bomb. I asked her if her story would change if she knew that I had watched the entire conversation she had with that guy that morning. She burst into tears, and her first question was, "Are you leaving me?" She eventually came clean and told me that she couldn't remember everything clearly, but she had sex with this guy and another teammate that night. She couldn't recall if it was with more guys, but it was all a blur. To make matters worse, she confessed that this wasn't the first time. There had been other occasions, and she even admitted to having sex with someone in our house while I was asleep upstairs. I was numb to it all. I helped her pack a bag, and she left to stay with her family. She pleaded with me not to tell anyone. Now, it's been 2 weeks since that fateful day, and I'm in a state of shock and confusion. I don't know what to do. I'm deeply hurt and betrayed, and it's challenging to see a way forward. She wants to blame it all on alcohol, is talking about going to rehab, and suggests couples therapy to rebuild our relationship. I'm torn, filled with a range of emotions, including guilt. I have a meeting with an attorney tomorrow, and I'm trying to make the right decision for my well-being, even though she's broken and wants to work things out. Talking to my wife is really hard because of what she did. I cannot talk to her without imagining people doing her in tag team. She cheated on me with other people, and it hurts a lot. I feel guilty, even though I know I didn't do anything wrong. She's trying to blame it on alcohol, but that doesn't make it okay. She only feels sorry now because she got caught. I'm sure we need a divorce, and I'm talking to a lawyer about it. Even if I could forgive the cheating, I can't stand the lying and keeping secrets. Trusting her is impossible for me now. I asked her what happened that night, and she didn't tell me the truth until I showed her the messages I found. I deserve better from her and those friends involved. I'm meeting with lawyers and someone to help with legal documents to figure out what to do. My wife doesn't know about this. We didn't talk for a few days, but she wants us to try marriage therapy. I've wanted that for a while, even before all of this happened. We finally got an appointment with a therapist, and my wife told the story in her words. She didn't tell everything, but she shared most of it. I told the therapist that our marriage is over because trust is broken and vows are shattered. The therapist agreed with my decision. I'm not planning to reconcile. The therapist wants us to do individual therapy first, and maybe, in the future, talk about getting back together, but I don't think that will happen. Individual therapy might help me, though. I know I'm going to have a legal battle ahead, and it could be messy and expensive, especially since I'm the one who earns more money, and I live in a no-fault divorce state. It's been about a week and a half since we both had individual therapy sessions. My wife has been telling her family that our marriage is ending because of the broken vows. We're both trying to heal ourselves right now. She's still staying with her family, and I can't stop obsessively checking her digital presence for any signs of her continuing her bad behavior, as some of you suggested. One night, I realized there was a place I hadn't checked, the App Store. I went to the app download history of the iCloud account and saw that she had downloaded a secret texting app onto her phone almost 2 weeks before. My guts sank, and I realized that she had been hiding her messages from me, even though she knew I had her iPad, which she insisted I keep to rebuild trust. I don't think she realized that an app downloaded on one iCloud device can be seen from another. I needed to know what they were talking about in that app. I downloaded the app on her iPad, tried some common login combinations, and found the truth. She had been messaging this guy since after our first therapy session together, and they had been continuing to have sex when she knew I'd be out of the area. I was devastated, and at one point, I couldn't handle it anymore. I went into the bathroom, grabbed prescription medications that could end my life, and sat on my bed ready to take them. I tried calling my family, but only my sister answered. She kept me on the phone for an hour until I calmed down. Then I went back to the bathroom, poured the pills back into their bottle, washed my hands, and tried to sleep, but sleep never came. I knew I had to go to work the next day. I threw the bottle of pills into my briefcase and took the iPad with me. I gave them to a trusted coworker and asked him to keep them locked up and not return them to me, no matter what. Now, I had the undeniable proof I had been searching for, proof that my wife was a cheater and a liar. I struggled with what to do with this information. I wanted to expose her to everyone, but I also had the process underway to end the marriage, and she could make it nasty and costly. As days went by and she couldn't reach me, she finally came to check on me. During our encounter, I was very vague and indifferent. I didn't know what to do. She lost her temper and yelled at me for acting weird, and that's when I asked her if she had any contact with this guy since that night. She said she blocked him on everything and insisted she'd never do that to me. Then, I revealed the truth about the app and the conversations, pictures, and plans they had been making. She collapsed onto the ground, crying and begging, but I kept my tone indifferent. I made a deal with my wife. I won't tell anyone about what she did, and in exchange, she won't make the divorce process difficult for me. I promised to be fair, even though I shouldn't have to be, and she agreed not to fight against the divorce. She left, and 2 days later, she was served with the divorce papers. Since then, I've kept my word and haven't told anyone outside of my immediate family. However, I've been monitoring her location through Find My iPhone, and I've seen that she visits this guy every single night at his house, where he lives with his mother. Her family thinks she's attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every night, but my location screenshots show otherwise. I can't understand why she hasn't changed her iCloud password. I know I keep compiling evidence, and I'm anxious about waiting for the right time to pass until her ability to fight me in court expires. During this time, her family believes she's on the right path when that's far from the truth. She's lying to all of them. What's hurting me the most right now is the injustice of it all. She gets to be with her family, act like everything is fine, and run off every night to be with him. Meanwhile, I go to work each day, return to an empty and haunting house, and experience what it truly means to be alone in every sense of the word. I've moved past the thoughts of self-harm, but these are still very dark days. I'm taking it 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, until the day comes when I can be reassured that I'll make it out of this situation without my finances being destroyed and can finally leave her behind. What I'll do from there, I honestly don't know yet. Right now, I'm just trying to survive until that moment comes. My divorce is finally official, and I no longer need to hide. I went through the long and absurd 6 months and 1 day cooling off period to see if my ex-wife would hire a lawyer without my knowledge, but she didn't. I've gone completely no contact, and I'm starting to make progress in my life. After my initial posts about the chaotic situation following the D-Day, when I discovered my wife's infidelity, I filed for divorce. Reddit users suggested that I return the iPad to my wife and cut ties to any devices and accounts that might lead to obsessive monitoring. Despite the emotional toll this approach took on me, it seemed like a reasonable plan at the time. I realized I couldn't trust my wife and didn't want to pay her significant spousal support, given we had no children and lived in a no-fault divorce state. So, I came up with a strategy to end the marriage as swiftly and fully as possible, although I'm not proud of some of the tactics I used. I arranged meetings with my wife, convincing her that I still wanted to salvage the relationship when, in reality, I had no intention of doing so. I made it clear that our marriage was over, and if we ever wanted to start fresh, we'd have to mutually end it and then begin dating each other again. One example of making it easy for her was how I had her served with divorce papers. A mutual friend played the role of a neutral third party during the exchange. My wife signed the papers without thoroughly reviewing them. I painted a picture of no spousal support beyond splitting our account, and she believed it. I met with her occasionally, always in public places, to maintain appearances and act like I cared. I removed her from my bank accounts, got her off the lease, and moved her belongings to a storage unit while leading her to believe we'd get a new place together to make the old house feel less haunting to me. I maintained the pretense of reconciliation for about 4 months, using deception to facilitate the separation process. I kept my wife in a state of submission and cooperation, making it easier to complete the necessary tasks. During this time, I met a family member who knew about my wife's affair and the truth of the situation. They asked if we were still working things out, and I falsely claimed that we were. However, I eventually received a text message from this family member, saying that they had seen my wife and her affair partner, Buddy, having dinner at a restaurant in another city. They shared a photo of them together. I let my emotions get the best of me and immediately texted my wife, asking if she could talk on the phone. She lied about being in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and promised to call me afterward. In response to her deception, I lashed out at her, using some choice words, and expressed my complete disinterest in speaking with her ever again. The last 2 months of the divorce occurred with her in a private relationship with Buddy, which eventually became public. As the divorce process continued, I maintained my no-contact stance with my ex-wife but learned that she was getting bolder in her relationship with Buddy. She began posting status updates and pictures of them together on social media. This led to many people, including friends and relatives, reaching out to me to find out what was happening. I was more than willing to share the details, as she had downplayed the events to those who inquired. Our friends and most of her close relatives were in shock when they learned the full story. I asked them to refrain from confronting her until the divorce was finalized. However, the more time passed, the bolder their relationship became, and it was causing me emotional pain. Just before the finalization of the divorce, I received screenshots of a Valentine's Day post featuring my ex-wife and Buddy, with a romantic description about how wonderful he was and her hope of marrying him someday. While part of me felt a deep sense of loss and disgust, I also realized how ridiculous, grotesque, and cold-hearted my ex-wife had become. I couldn't believe I hadn't seen this side of her during our years together. As for Buddy, I had no respect or energy to comment or worry about him. Finally, the court-appointed date for the dissolution of our marriage arrived last week. I didn't receive any legal papers, and her opportunity to contest the agreements had passed. I was able to keep my entire 401k, avoided spousal support and additional debt in my name, and didn't need lawyers or court appearances. I no longer had to deal with this person ever again. At the end of it all, I blocked her number from my cell phone. The following day, 7 of my closest friends, 6 of whom had been friends with both of us, threw me a divorce party. They documented the celebration on Snapchat, and it truly was a memorable and worthy event. In response, my ex-wife blocked every single one of them on social media and sent some nasty texts to a few of them. Even her maid of honor, who was at my divorce party, wanted nothing more to do with her. The divorce was finalized in February of 2019, and I tried my best to go no contact. However, that's easier said than done in this day and age. Every now and then, I'd come across a post from a distant family member of hers whom I hadn't yet blocked, or a friend would unintentionally mention something they saw on a mutual friend's Snapchat. My true friends did their best to shield me from these updates, but some news was just too big to keep hidden. The first major revelation came in May of 2019 when one of my best friends called me to drop a bombshell. My ex-wife was getting remarried to a guy from Tennessee. I couldn't believe it. Apparently, my friend's husband hadn't yet blocked my ex-wife on Facebook and was able to capture screenshots of the events that led up to this big news. All of this took place between March and July of 2019. It appeared that her relationship with Buddy didn't last long after our divorce was finalized. I don't know the specifics of their breakup, and I must admit that part of me wishes I did. However, given the drama that has unfolded, it's not entirely surprising. Starting in April, her Facebook status updates began hinting at everything happening for a reason and dropping subtle hints that she was falling in love with someone new. Then, seemingly out of nowhere in July, she posted a simple picture on her wall. The photo featured her and some random guy whom none of us knew or had ever heard of. They were standing in front of a courthouse, holding hands, with rings on their fingers. The photo appeared to show some sort of marriage certificate. It was geotagged in California and updated with her new last name. Her caption read something along the lines of being excited to start the rest of her life with this amazing man and feeling blessed. I know that this entire story, from my first post until now, may sound unbelievable, but I can assure you that I'm writing down the honest truth. I understand that the next few lines might be hard to digest, but if you've read this far, I hope you trust me. I couldn't resist the intense curiosity surrounding the situation, so I decided to reach out to one of my ex-wife's cousin-in-laws, with whom I had a decent rapport, to get the rest of the story. He obliged and revealed that her new husband was someone she had met online. They had been talking for a few months over the phone, exchanging texts, and more. Apparently, they both fell deeply in love with each other, and he proposed to her on a phone call. She accepted, and they couldn't wait to make it official. Within a week of the proposal, she made a serious attempt to inform her family and invite them to attend the wedding. The ceremony took place in a random California town, about 2 hours away from our hometown. The shocking part was that her new husband flew out to California for the wedding. They met face to face for the first time on their wedding day, yet they were now husband and wife. But what left me utterly flabbergasted was the fact that not a single person from her family attended the courthouse wedding. It remains unclear whether this was due to a lack of time to plan or a lack of respect for the occasion, but it was certainly a matter that would have bothered her. After the courthouse wedding, they spent Sunday packing a moving truck with all of her belongings. On Monday, they headed east for Tennessee, leaving me in disbelief. I've heard this story from enough people to know that it's true, but at the time, it all seemed beyond belief. That poor man, if only he knew. I can't help but think that if he had been informed, he might have had the presence of mind to avoid getting married in California, a no-fault state where he could potentially find himself in the same situation I faced with my ex-wife. But for now, I had to do my best to push the thought of them out of my mind. Fortunately, the silver lining was that they were moving far, far away, and I knew I wouldn't have any chance of randomly running into her ever again. The year 2019 was already filled with its share of bombshells, and right in the middle of fall, another one dropped. As I was scrolling through Instagram, a video unexpectedly appeared on my screen. It showed my ex-wife holding a plate in front of her father, who was covering his eyes with his hands. Before I could grasp what I was looking at, I noticed a single cookie on the plate, covered with blue frosting. My ex-wife's voice came through the video, counting down, 3, 2, 1, it's a boy. Her father uncovered his eyes, and it was a gender reveal video. I couldn't believe that I was seeing this. Her mother had just created a completely public Instagram account and posted this video, probably because of Instagram's algorithm suggesting that I might know this person. It threw me into a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a mixture of disgust, pain, frustration, and even a bit of jealousy. One of my great aspirations in life had always been to become a father, and had it not been for the tumultuous journey of my previous timeline, this could have been the time when we had a child together. It could have been my child. I'm 32 years old now, and I thought I'd be a father by now or, at the very least, on a clear path toward building a family. I'm a mature man, and I understand that I still have time ahead of me to achieve the dream with someone I love and am happy with. But I can't help but compare where I am in life to where I thought I'd be by now. Despite everything, there are more and more days now where she and her chaotic life don't cross my mind at all, and I see that as progress. Of course, there are still bad days, and the stay-at-home orders, which have made these days even more depressing, haven't helped. I'm fortunate to be working as an independent contractor, allowing me to work from home on my computer, but those are very lonely days. I make an effort to get outside and take walks, but I do miss the gym. I've also gone home to visit my parents as much as I can, seeking some company beyond talking to someone on a webinar or over the phone. I realize that this situation, which affects us all, is a shared experience. I'm not going through it alone, and when I start feeling hopeless, I think back to the early days following my D-Day. I remember how I thought I'd never make it through that, yet I did. I remind myself that I'll also make it through this difficult time, one day at a time, one moment to the next. Time moves forward, even if it seems to be crawling at a snail's pace. I want to express my gratitude to all of you who took the time to read my update and catch up on what's transpired. I'd like to close by offering my sincerest thanks to those of you who commented, messaged me, and encouraged me throughout this entire life event. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that it was the strength of this community that saved me, encouraged me, and gave me another shot at living a happy life after avoiding a dismal existence. Thank you. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please click on the subscribe button. It will be a great help.